Hello, Patriots. Today in math, we're going to continue working on topic 20. We are going to combine 3 lessons. We're going to work on topic 3, data from surveys, 4, interpreting graphs, and finally, topic lesson 6, we're going to actually make a graph. There are some big ideas from these 3 lessons. As you can see on the left-hand side, the first one is that data can be represented visually using tally marks, tables, charts, and graphs. And over on the right-hand side, you could see that there is data right here in a chart with tally marks. And here's a bar graph. We are also going to talk about the types of data. They determine the best type of graph to use. So, for example, if you had a lot of data and you surveyed many people, you may not want to use any type of tally chart because there would be a lot of tally marks. Also, C, a valid example can be used to make predictions about the total data. So, predicting is making a very good guess about what you think will happen. So, if we have a valid sample, that means that our survey was accurate. We can make predictions about that data. I don't need you to write any of these notes down. We will do that in a few minutes. Okay, your math journal should be out. We're doing our 2-column notes. And on the left side of our 2-column notes, first thing we're going to do is write our I can statement. So, I can explain graphs and charts such as bar graphs. So here's our verb. This is what we're going to be able to do. Explain. We're going to explain graphs and charts and bar graphs. So I'll pause here so you can get your I can statement written on the left side of your notes. Our first question that we're going to have today is, which sports team do you think our 4th grade class should sponsor? And our choices today are going to be football, basketball, and baseball. So I will pause again for you to write those on the left side of your 2-column note. Okay, on the right side, we are going to make a chart. And we are going to label it teams to sponsor. And our first choice is football. Our second choice was basketball. And our third choice was baseball. And if I make tally marks, 13 students chose football, so I'm going to represent 13 by using our tally marks. Remember, the 5th tally mark goes diagonally. Basketball, 8 students chose basketball, so we're going to write our tally marks. And for baseball, 11. So this is an 8 and this is 11. And this is our very first chart that we can show data with. I will pause so you can catch up. Now, looking at our tally chart, we counted that football would be the sport that our class would sponsor. And we know that because the greatest number of students chose football. If I asked you what was the least sport that students chose, you would then choose basketball because 8 students chose basketball. So Patriots, what we just did is we took a survey. We represented our data by tally marks. We added them up, and from our data we were able to decide that football is the sport that our class would sponsor. I can take this same data and I can make it into a graph. So if I draw my vertical line and my horizontal line, and on the left side I am doing my scale with an interval of 2, because I'm starting at 0 and I go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So I'm counting by 2s. That is my interval. Below I am going to write football, basketball, and finally baseball. And these are the teams, if I'm labeling to sponsor. And over here, if we're labeling our scale, this would be the number of students. Okay, when I look at my data from our tally chart, we see that 13 students chose football. So we will come up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 13 is not on there, but we know that 13 is right there between 12 and 14. So we will draw our bar. Basketball is 8, so we come up 2, 4, 6, 8, come across, and draw our bar. And baseball was 11. Again, you come up to our scale, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 11's not on there, but we know 11 is between 10 and 12. So we come across and draw our bar. So this is a graph that shows the same data as our chart of tally marks. And we can explain that football was the sport chosen for our class to sponsor because it had the most number of votes. And we can see visually on our bar graph that it's the tallest bar. And because it's the tallest bar, it has the most votes. And that's the one that we could see that we would choose. We could also explain from the graph that basketball was the least chosen sport because 8 students chose basketball. I'm going to pause so you can draw your graph and write your notes. Continuing on, we have a problem, and over on the side it says, question number 9, we're going to learn to interpret our graphs, explain them. So it says that Texas has an average of 124 tornadoes each year, more than any other state. Which year had the closest to the average number of tornadoes? So if we go to our bar graph, these are the Texas tornadoes. And our bar graph isn't vertical this time, but horizontal, side to side. And we see that on the left side of the graph are the years. We have 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. And on the bottom is the number of tornadoes. And it starts at 0 and then skips to 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. And from this, I could tell that our interval for this scale is 20. So we have an interval of 20. So if I go back to my question, they want to know, or they tell us that Texas has an average of 124 tornadoes a year. Which year had the closest average number of tornadoes? So I find 120 on my graph, and I'm actually going to draw a line down so we could see clearly. And the year that's closest to that yellow line, or 120 tornadoes, is 2001. So the answer for number 9 would be the year of 2001. Let's move on to question 10. Which year had the most tornadoes? About how many tornadoes were there? Well, we could tell the most tornadoes by the longest bar. And if I look at our graph over here, I see that 2004 has the longest bar. So the answer to the first part is 2004. And about how many tornadoes were there? I see that that number is very close to 180 tornadoes. Now, again, you do not need to draw this graph or write the questions because we will do more practice in class. For this last section, we are going to actually be able to create or make a graph. So on the left side of our 2-column notes, I am going to need you to copy down this tally chart. We are going to have students in 2 4th grade classes complete a survey about their favorite hobbies. We're going to see how these 2 classes are similar and how they are different. So our first class that we are going to survey is Mrs. Jareski's class. And we are making our chart, and it is going to have favorite hobby. And then we're going to have tally marks. And we, for our purposes of this survey, we are choosing swimming, cycling, and art. Now, for swimming, 15 students chose that as their favorite hobby, so we need to write our 15 tally marks. For cycling, 10 students chose cycling, and for art, 5 students chose art. So that is the data representation from Ms. Jareski's class. Our second class that we are surveying is Mrs. Weaver's class. And we're going to create our chart. And we are still writing our favorite hobby. And we are going to show this with tally marks. And we're using the same activities: swimming, cycling, and art. And boys and girls, remember, you do not have to limit yourself to 3 choices. It could be open-ended as long as you do both samples that way. So for Miss Weaver's class, 11 students chose swimming, so we need 11 tally marks. 13 students chose cycling, and 5 students chose art. So there is our chart with tally marks representing the data from Mrs. Jareski's class and Miss Weaver's class. I will pause so you can get these charts down on the left side of your 2-column notes. Now, if I asked you, how are the data displays the same? You can think that both are tally charts with the same hobbies listed. We have swimming on both, cycling on both, and art on both. If I asked you how are they different, the total number of tally marks, or the number of tally marks in each hobby, is different. So for Ms. Jareski's class, for example, swimming, they chose 15 students. For swimming in Ms. Weaver's class, 11 chose swimming as their favorite hobby. So that is one way to represent that data. On the right side of our 2-column notes, we are now going to create a bar graph. So we are going to first draw Mrs. Jareski's class. And we are going to, let's see, we'll do this at and this on the side is the number of students. And on the bottom is going to be the favorite hobbies, and I'm just going to abbreviate and write S for swimming, C for cycling, and A for art. Now, over here on the left, our scale, our interval for this scale is 5. I'll pause so you can draw your graph. Okay, before we move on, I also want to label the bottom as hobbies, because that's what these are. So, for Ms. Jareski's class, if I go to swimming, 15 students chose swimming as their favorite hobby. I come up 5, 10, 15, and I draw the bar. For cycling is 10, so I come up 5, 10, I come over and draw the bar. And for art it is 5, so I come up 5, I go over and draw my bar. And right away you can look at your bar graph and see that swimming was chosen as the favorite hobby. Let's go and create Miss Weaver's class. So here we have 5, and we have 10, and we have 15, and we have 20. Same thing here, number of students. And on the bottom we're going to show swimming, cycling, art, and these are the hobbies. So if we look at the tally mark chart for Miss Weaver's class, 11 students chose swimming. 5, 10, 15. 11's not on there, but we do know that 11 is between 10 and 15 and right after 10, so we're going to come to 10, go up just a little bit, come over and draw our bar. And 13 students chose cycling, so we come up 5, 10, 15. Again, 13's not on there, but we know it's between 10 and 15. Somewhere close to halfway, a little more than halfway, and we draw the bar. And then last, 5 students chose art, so we come to 5, we go across, and we draw our bar. And visually, immediately you could see that for Miss Weaver's class on this bar graph that their class chose cycling as their favorite hobby. I'll pause here so you can get your graph done. Okay. If I look at both the chart and the graphs, I could see that both of them show the same data. So I'm looking at the same thing. However, with the bar graphs, I can quickly see how the heights of the bars compare. You could look at them and not have to count anything. You could immediately know that for Ms. Jareski's class that swimming was chosen as the favorite hobby, and for Ms. Weaver's class that cycling was chosen. It takes less time to look and compare those graphs than actually count up the tally marks. That is our lesson for today. Great job, patrons, and we'll talk to you soon.